This video is a follow-up to my recent video where I shared 5 tips worth knowing before you start working with ESP32 Super Mini microcontroller. So if you have not seen this video, probably is a good idea to watch it first. This video really resonated with you. I got thousands of views and close to 100 comments in just few days. And among them there were some that added some valuable insight to the tips I originally presented. So let's jump in and go through them one by one. We have 5 tips to cover, but I will change the original order. The topic that sparked the most discussion was the issue with Wi-Fi connectivity, so I will save that one for last. Make sure you don't miss it. Let's start with the tip that in last video was presented last. This one was about reclaiming 2 additional GPIO pins from the USB-C socket. This tip turned out to be somewhat unorthodox, so there people mostly indicated that they liked it in general and provided no additional suggestions. PowerRec, however, commented that most people won't actually have a use for this tip. And I agree. In the final version of your projects, you're probably not going to use it. However, I can see it being handy when you are working on a breadboard prototype. Moving to the next tip. This one was first on the original list, where we discuss possible issues with serial communication. This required enabling an option in the Arduino IDE, but also making sure there is a short delay after opening the serial monitor before sending any output. I received few comments on this one. Workshop Shed wondered whether using an if serial approach would work instead of delay. Unfortunately, in this case, it would not. I haven't used it before, but I looked it up, and it turned out that this approach works for some boards with native USB, like Arduino Leonardo or Arduino Micro. On those boards, if serial checks whether the USB CDC connection to the hose is open, and it's only become true after the serial monitor is connected. On our board, however, serial begin returns immediately, and if serial becomes true right away, it does not wait for the serial monitor to open. Then John questioned the length of the delay, and rightly so. In the video, I was using a very simple sketch, so I didn't worry too much about unnecessary delay. I checked, and 25 milliseconds is not enough. You need at least 300 milliseconds to properly initialize serial monitor. The last comment on this tip came from Nick, who questioned using delay altogether. I completely agree that using delay in code is not ideal, as it freezes all processing for the duration of the delay. Whenever possible, I try to use melees instead, so delays don't block other tasks from being performed by the microcontroller. In this example, however, the delay is in the setup, so it runs only once at startup and does not affect anything in the main loop. The next tip we will breeze through. It was tip number 2 on the original list. This one showed how to stop the annoying LED blinking caused by the LED sharing the same GPIO as one of the I2C pins. Whenever there was some I2C activity, the LED would blink unnecessarily. The fix was simply to move the I2C bus to 2 different pins and free up GPIO pin 8. This tip was fairly self-explanatory, so there isn't much more to add here. However, if you go back to PowerRec post that we already looked at, he suggested desoldering the LED altogether. That would be a great advice for someone with good SMD soldering skills. Unfortunately, I'm not one of those people, and if I tried this, it would probably end up with me having one dead microcontroller. Moving on to the next tip. Number 4 on the original list. This one showed how to upload code using UART adapter. In order to do it, we connected microcontroller to the PC through the UART adapter and put microcontroller into programming mode by shorting GPIO 9 to ground with the jumper wire. In the IDE, we had to slow down the upload speed because the UART adapter couldn't handle the maximum speed. After uploading the sketch, the code would run after that connection between GPIO 9 and ground was removed. I mentioned that I couldn't get this to work by just pressing the boot button during upload, but guys like MDM Aviation and Tim pointed out the correct sequence. So let's follow their suggestion. First, let's connect the UART adapter. The setup is identical to one we used last time. Here, our microcontroller is connected to the PC via the serial pins 21 and 20. We also have an LED connected to pin 5. We will use the same sketch as before, the sketch that simply blinks this LED. Before uploading, we need to do two things. First, we need to slow down the upload speed because the maximum speed doesn't work reliably with UART. Second, we need to select the correct port for UART adapter. Since this microcontroller is so tiny, loading the code using a jumper wire to short pin 9 is probably the easiest approach. But let's be creative and use my chopsticks to get the correct button sequence. If the boot button is equivalent to shorting GPIO pin 9 to ground, and reset is the same as powering off and on the microcontroller, then the process is simple. Press and hold the boot button. While holding it, press and release the reset button. After a short moment, release the boot button as well. You are now in programming mode, and you can start the upload. After a successful upload, the sketch doesn't run immediately because we are still in programming mode. To exit that mode, we need to press the reset button once more. And voila! The LED starts blinking. Thanks guys for clarifying the correct button sequence. And now to the last one. This tip showed how to fix Wi-Fi connectivity using a single line of code that lowers the transmit power, minimizing interference that was causing Wi-Fi to malfunction. When I was working on this video, this fix worked every time. I wasn't transmitting much data over Wi-Fi, so I was happy that the connection worked and didn't really analyze the signal quality. Since then, however, I realized that even with the software fix in place, I started having problems with the connection. It was either flaky or wouldn't connect at all. That's when I started looking at RSSI, Received Signal Strength Indicator. RSSI measures how strong a received radio signal is. It's usually expressed in dBm, where values closer to 0 indicate a stronger signal. For example, 30 dBm means very good signal. We would be aiming at getting something around 60, which is a reliable signal. 80 is a weak one. 90 or lower, very poor or unstable signal. RSSI is often used to evaluate wireless link quality, compare antenna performance, diagnose connectivity issues. Let's write code to display RSSI of the Wi-Fi connection. In other words, how strong the signal is as received by our ESP32 microcontroller. First, we need to include the Wi-Fi library and of course provide our hotspot credentials. In the setup function, we start by opening the serial monitor. We also change the Wi-Fi transmit power settings, which I discussed earlier in my original 5 tips video. Without that change, we couldn't connect to Wi-Fi using this microcontroller. Next, we attempt to connect to Wi-Fi network. Once the connection is successful, a confirmation message is displayed along with the assigned IP address. Then in the loop function, we continuously check the status of the Wi-Fi connection. If the connection is still active, we read the RSSI value and output it to the serial monitor. This process repeats once every second. Let's now run the code from the spot located roughly 4 meters away from the hotspot. The upload is almost complete, and as you can see, the connection quality is quite poor. To examine this problem more closely, I extended the code to do the same measurement but display the results on the OLED screen. This way I don't have to carry my laptop around. Here you can see the breadboard setup, including a power module that allows me to power the breadboard rails from the 5-volt adapter. You can also see the small OLED display connected via the I2C bus. So let's use this device to measure signal quality close to the router. As you can see, we are getting a really poor connection. Let's reinitiate the connection. This time it looks good, but fluctuation like this doesn't inspire confidence, does it? Let's try one more time, and again the connection quality is terrible. Now let's test from the larger distance. I will position the device roughly 5 meters away from the router, and as you can see, the device fails to connect entirely. Let's replace the microcontroller to check whether this is a defect in this specific unit or a general issue with this type of module. This time we get a decent result, but let's run it again. And as you can see, we are failing to connect once more. So the question is, how can we fix this problem, or can we fix it at all? These guys explain that this board has a design flaw. The antenna is placed too close to the crystal. That proximity causes interference when connecting to Wi-Fi, which results in a very poor connection or sometimes no connection at all. Keen2461 even suggested ditching this particular module entirely and looking for a different version where this issue has been addressed. Jack suggested a hardware fix, soldering a 3 cm wire to the antenna to improve connection quality. Looking at the board, it wasn't immediately clear to me where the antenna was. Not as obvious as on LoRa or GPS module. But no worries, John Doe identified the antenna for us. Here it is. You can see here just how close the antenna is to the crystal. On the right, you have an antenna feed pad. The other end isn't connected to anything. The solder just holds the ceramic antenna in place. So the antenna has to be modified here. When it came to the method, opinions were split. Jack suggested soldering a straight wire to the feed pad. John Doe, however, suggested desoldering the antenna and reattaching it to the feed pad at a 90 degrees angle. As they say, there are many ways to skin a cat. Drunk Retro used a 3 cm wire to form a small loop connecting both sides of the antenna, with the rest of the wire sticking vertically away from the board. So the question is, which design should I choose? I grabbed a paperclip wire and made 2 antennas. One is a straight piece, the other one I wrapped around the screw, so I ended up with a small spring-like coil. Let's start with the coiled one. I will solder it directly to the antenna feed pad. And there it is. Now let's test it next to the router. That already looks much better, but the real question is, will this improvement be consistent? Unfortunately, not always. We still see occasional drops in connection quality. So let's move to the 5-meter test. And here, the situation isn't great. I did manage to connect once with decent quality, but shortly after, the connection degraded again. At this point, I switched to a straight antenna, and I also changed the material to the copper wire. And honestly, it didn't look promising. This was the moment when I started to lose hope. But then I bent the copper wire into a rough spring shape and tried again. And what do you know? Suddenly, the connection quality improved dramatically. There are still occasional issues, but overall it's clearly much better than before. For a final confirmation, I moved the test to another room, roughly 17 meters away from the router, with several obstacles in between. Let's test the modules with antennas first, starting with our projected winner. And as you can see, the connection quality is consistently solid. Now let's try the steel antenna. And as expected, the connection is flaky. Finally, let's confirm what happens without any antenna at all. And no surprise here. From this distance, the module can't connect. So what does adding this antenna mean for the project I am currently working on? Well, as Murphy's Law would tell you, if something can go wrong, it probably will. And in this case, the antenna clearly clashes with a nearby capacitor. Because of that, for this particular project, I will most likely look for a different ESP32-C3 Super Mini module, one with the same pinout, but with the antenna issue properly addressed in the design. If I do end up switching modules, you will see it in one of my upcoming videos. And when that happens, I will definitely repeat these tests with the new hardware. Thank you once again for all your feedback. It really shed more light on the tips from my original video. Don't forget to like and share and subscribe for more videos like this one. You can also support my channel by becoming my patron, buying me a coffee on Ko-fi, or becoming the channel member. I'll see you guys in my next video. Ciao!